farmers market is back. Good things going on in the city of Houston. A little bit crisp weather to getting started. It's not as windy as it was the other day. All those tents will be blowing away. So what do you guys want to talk about?
Are you eating a different vegetable every day, Mayor?
Actually, I'm already trying to do that, but with the farmers market, it will make it much easier. I have my particular favorite veggies that are out there, vendors, and I'm hoping to go shopping in a few minutes and pick up some greens.
Mayor, on the grape pit item today, were you saying that there is a priority in order in which those will be tested, beginning with people who are in jail in connection with the case when the kid has not been tested? Just clarify that.
We're shipping everything out in bulk, and they're going to do a quick triage of everything to see if there's any DNA material to test. Once that's done, yes, there is a priority. We don't expect to see many cases, having looked around the country at the results of these large-scale testings. You know, there may be one or two cases out of the more than 6,000, but yes, we have prioritized, and that the priority has been made available to council that it would be active cases first, and then where we're trying to find the perpetrator, and then cases where someone is serving time.
Yeah, the travel costs, I've noted that was raised a lot. It seems logical enough that these folks are coming from halfway across the country two ways. Is that a concern for you?
It's not a concern. We built in a 10% contingency for testifying and so forth. But again, before we created this contract, we looked at other cities that have done mass testing, and the hit rate was incredibly low. In Manhattan, they did 6,000 cases, and they had one overturned, and really very small. LA the same. So that we built in numbers. We built into our number an amount for testifying in cases. We don't believe we will hit that amount, and we based it on results of mass testing in other cities.
You mean it's already in the contract? Or?
Yes.
No.
We factored in the contract price.
Hey, this would be travel for what? I'm not clear.
If we need, what we've tried to explain to council members is that we negotiated a bulk price for the testing of sexual assault kits and other DNA that is 1/3 the cost of anything that we've seen anywhere else, including here at the Harris County Center for Forensic Science. So it gives us a lot of headroom on the contract. With this bulk rate that's 1/3 the cost, we negotiated, we put in a 10% contingency for the overall contract for testifying and so forth, but we also have a negotiated schedule of fees for expert testimony if we discover a case that needs to be further adjudicated in some way. Someone who's serving time and shouldn't be, or someone who, a case that needs to be reopened. And we will pay per that schedule for any expert testimony that we need. But the contract is intended to be comprehensive, and we still have several $1 million set aside by council order in the last budget to completely take care of this issue. So we think we're in good shape. And again, we're saving nearly $9 million over the cost that we would have incurred with our previous vendors. So
It's been, Mayor, it's been a long time coming, getting to this point. Now that's finally passed and moving forward, how do you feel about this whole process and where it's going?
It needed to be done. I'm glad it's being done. I am satisfied that we have a cost-effective solution, but also the right solution for everybody who's been involved in this process. Both the survivors of rape, but also those who may be incarcerated, if they're already incarcerated wrongly. we're gonna move forward. This is a problem that was decades in the making, and we've acted upon it as rapidly as we could, and I'm glad to say that within the year, we will be able to put this behind us and move on.
So what would be your next project in this
Well, I
forensic site?
always have a project moving forward.
Yeah.
Of course, we're still working to roll out our hike and bike trails across the city of Houston. So, I mean, that's a big feel-good project. No, you know what the big financial issues are. We're trying to get our arms around healthcare costs, as every major city and county and state government out there, and we're trying to get our arms around pension costs. And we're also trying to navigate the legislative session without too much rolling downhill at us that we don't anticipate. So in the near term, those will be the big issues.
Yeah.
Mayor, is this a good time to have a forum for the women who may have been affected by or have a vested interest in drug kits being tested, so that the women can come forward and voice their concern over how you're proceeding?
Again, these rape kits, these sexual assault kits, were never ignored. There was a law enforcement decision made not to test. Part of that in the early days was that testing was rare. It was expensive. It wasn't the go-to area that it is today for our police officers. Many of these cases have already been adjudicated. Again, some of these kits were collected in cases where it's a he said, she said. You know, it's an issue of consent, not what was their sexual contact. For law enforcement purposes at that time, there was a decision made not to test these kits. We will not be contacting any of the women whose kits we have unless there is some reopening of the case. What we have seen around the country, less than 1% of these kind of mass testings result in any further action on the part of law enforcement. So we think it's well within our budget, and we think that we'll deal with it as it comes at that point.
In terms of priority of these things, what exactly is an active case? Is that a case that...
We're actually sending, because we negotiated such a great bulk price,
Right.
We're actually sending some of the current cases for testing as well. And anybody where there's an open case and it comes in and it's hot and we need a quick test, if we can't do it most speedily in our own lab, we'll include it in here.
So it's active cases, the current cases first.
Current cases.
And then after that, cases in which there's some question...
something needs to be retested to determine whether we have the right person in jail. But again, I think we're getting too hung up on which gets tested first. We're sending it all in bulk to these two labs, and they're going to do a major triage up front of everything. And then going from there, they'll decide which ones have to go through the second round of testing. Not everything has testable DNA.
Yeah, getting back to the issue of...
Two-part question, if I may, really quick. And forgive my ignorance if I only have enough information, context information. Once the backlog is taken care of completely, what's the future going to be? As far as I know, there's a project or a conjunct lab or something with the county. Can you refresh our memory in that regard or something?
Last year, the city of Houston began to take steps to create an independent forensic center, independent of the Houston Police Department, with a governing board. We created the shell. We put a governing board in place. And in fact, I believe the governing board is about to announce their technical advisory board, which is where all the forensic scientists would be. And we're in the midst of a slow, deliberate process. I certainly am surprised that people think we were just going to take our problems and dump them off onto this new private lab. The goal was a smooth transition over time with deliberate steps along the way. And the reason that we put money aside in the current fiscal year budget to handle these backlog sexual assault kits was so that the new Houston Forensic Science Center, this independent entity, would be able to start without dragging the burdens of the past with them.
And I'll follow up really quick. To what extent would you like, the fact that council passed it today, as far as I know unanimously, to what extent do you want it to become part of your legacy, regardless you get reelected, since it was one of the issues that you campaigned on to a certain extent?
This is just something that needed to be done. It didn't happen overnight, it happened over decades. And successive mayors, certainly the last two mayors, knew about it and were unable to address it. I'm happy that I was able to come up with a plan to move it forward, and I'm happy to have the unanimous support of council to do that. But I don't take any particular pride in the fact that it took us so long to get here and that we had this kind of problem develop. Whether it happened on my watch or someone else's watch, it was wrong, and this needed to be done.
Getting back to budgets and planning, as you know, there's quite concern in Washington for sequester if Congress doesn't adjust the budget. There's talk about drastic impacts around the country. Are you aware of any direct impact on Houston or its citizens if sequester occurs?
There will definitely be direct impacts on Houston. We're not as vulnerable as those cities that have a major federal presence. You know, military bases or major federal complexes. However, our airport, our port, very important for the overall economy, and they depend on TSA, Customs and Border Patrol, so there is a potential of direct impact here in Houston. We have not been able to quantify it yet because there hasn't been a final decision in any of those agencies as to what they're going to do to hit their across-the-board cuts.
So you guys haven't been briefed on, like, oh, there might be 5 fewer TSA agents, you know, anything
We have been briefed in the broadest terms, but again, until they tell us where they're going to cut, they may decide. There are different ways that each agency can handle the cuts, and we're not going to scramble in one direction and then determine that they've made a different decision. We are going to try to conduct our operations exactly the way we do today, but it's very easy to figure out if there are fewer TSA agents, there will be lines at security, and we'll have to adjust. If there are fewer Customs and Border Patrol agents, there'll be lines at our airports with inbound travelers getting through the airports, and ships will begin to stack up at the Port of Houston. We just don't know the extent to which that will happen.
Mayor, do you know of any new directives that have been given to the police chief as it relates to immigration and how they're going to handle immigration, since so much immigration law has been changed or any policies have been changed in recent months?
I'm not aware of any changes in law or immigration policy that have been passed. We have a policy that we follow here in the city of Houston for years. It's unchanged. We cooperate fully with immigration, but we are not an enforcement arm of our immigration service, and so if we arrest someone for violating a crime here, they go to jail and they are run through various secure communities, 287G, and we cooperate and coordinate, but otherwise law-abiding Houstonians are left alone. No changes in policy.
You mentioned healthcare costs earlier, and a couple weeks ago you'd had a discussion with Councilman Costello on the health benefits subcommittee and the idea of possible changes to save on the budget. How are those going to be anticipated?
We're putting final touches on it. We will have some changes. I can't tell you until I tell council first.
Well, sure you
I
can.
was a little bit, we went to council and asked for suggestions. I have to say that council didn't take the bait. They didn't offer me any suggestions. They just left it up to me. So we need a plan that makes sense for us and makes sense for our employees, but we have to get a grip on healthcare costs, and it's not something new. The cost of providing medical services continues to go up, and there's still a lot of uncertainty around the Affordable Care Act, and we will make adjustments to our benefits to make sure that we maintain some budgetary control.
And then jumping around subjects, the Chapter 26 tag today to be considered next week. I wanted to ask specifically about the proposal in there related to special parking areas. Didn't know if what your thoughts were on that. Do you see that as a potential solution to some of the problem areas that the ordinance was presented for?
We think that special parking areas are absolutely the solution that we need. When we created the Washington Avenue Parking Benefit District, that was, in effect, the first special parking area. We said then, and we have continued to say, that what we're trying to get away from is a one-size-fits-all policy for the city of Houston. There are different types of neighborhoods, there are different types of retail and commercial properties. They have different impacts. You may be closer to some sort of mass transit or not. How close are you into a residential area? If we pass these changes, we will have the ability to structure solutions on the micro level instead of just the one macro ordinance. And I'm very excited about the possibilities. Although nothing will happen overnight, the neighborhoods will have to come forward and say they like some kind of tailored solution. And we'll work with the district council members and the various stakeholders to then make that happen. I think, I fully expect to pass Chapter 26, the new parking ordinances, next week. We had a minor amendment that was offered. I don't think it's necessarily a bad amendment. It's always a little frustrating when a stakeholder doesn't get what they want in the meetings and then comes and pops something in on council, but we'll work through it.
Mayor, we talked to the Parking Authority yesterday, and to try to get clarity on the amnesty program, and why there wasn't enough detailed information on how you qualify. And then something else came up, and that was that during the amnesty program, when you only qualify if you pay within the amnesty, not when you bond or when you do anything else during that period, and it's extended. And there's no clarity because
Tony, I am not in much sympathy for people who walk their tickets. And we offer an amnesty in order to clear the decks and give people one last chance before we do the warrant roundups and haul them off to jail. And if I don't have any respect for scofflaws. You pay your debts, you pay your tickets, and we tell people there's an amnesty in hopes that they will step forward and contact us. But the kind of people who walk away from their tickets don't normally come forward.
People want to pay their tickets, but it's a matter of clarity.
No. If you call in, we'll tell you exactly what you need to do. And we have no.
That was in question.
We have no requirement to give an amnesty. It's us being nice, and now we're going to go and do the enforcement. Make people pay it.
This morning, just before City Council, the group in front of City Hall had a press conference talking about their concerns about the Voting Rights Act and the case before the Supreme Court, whether or not it's still necessary. I realize that's not the responsibility of the mayor, but the discussion is whether or not we still need the Voting Rights Act to be enforced. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I don't know the answer is whether we still need the Voting Rights Act. That is for the Supreme Court to decide.
Yeah.
But I do know that we need to continue to be vigilant to make sure that minority rights are respected, because I do not believe that we have reached a point in this country where we can be blind to the impacts of race and ethnicity in treatment of our citizens.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.